Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Professional Association of Resume Writers and Career Coaches. And this marks our second webinar about uh, business in these GCC. It is my pleasure to introduce our speaker and our facilitator, Andrew Arkley, who is also, by the way, he is also the administrator for our Certified CV Writers program, which is the program that Park supports to validate somebody's CV writing expertise. So, Andrew, I know that you have a lot to share, so I will let you take it away. Thanks, Andrew.
Thank you very much, Margaret, and lovely to meet you all today. I'm really hoping by the end of this presentation, you're going to get nothing but value. So the value today is all about how do we craft a winning CV for the GCC market. So CVs and resumes, for that matter, do change according to the region that you're applying to. So today we're really going to focus on the GCC. So if you're planning to move to the GCC, whether it's Dubai or Saudi Arabia, or maybe you're a CPRW who's looking to expand their services to individuals, then today's presentation is for you. So before we crack on with the content, I'm just going to talk a little bit about Park, PRWCC, and also about myself, just as an introduction. And then we'll crack on with how do we craft a winning CV for the market. So a little bit about Professional Association of Resume Writers and Career Coaches. We're a leading professional association supporting career practitioners from all around the globe. Our mission is pretty simple, but it's to promote excellence, ethical practice, and professional development within the career support industry. And as mentioned, we have members from all around the world, but in particular the UK, the UAE, USA, and Australia and beyond. So some particular services that we do offer, along with giving amazing content like we're doing today. So first of all, we support career practitioners setting the standard when it comes to resume and CV writing, but also things like LinkedIn optimization as well. We also support with outplacement and career transition for organizations who are undergoing restructuring. We also set the standard and frameworks for certifications around coaching, so career coaching, interview coaching, and we're also a B2B consultancy as well. So if you haven't come across the Professional Association of Resume Writers and Career Coaches before, I highly recommend you go onto our website, parwcc.com, and make sure you follow us on our socials as well, so you can keep abreast of webinars like today and helping you with your career or your career support practice. So a little bit about myself. So once again, my name is Andrew Arkley. I'm the founder and director of a company called Purple CV. So we're one of, if not the largest CV writing company in the UK, but we also have a presence in the GCC as well, purplecv.ae. So our company in Dubai is all focused on delivering amazing CVs for individuals who are coming to the region. We also operate in Australia and in the US as well. In addition to running my business, I'm also the program director, as Margaret mentioned there, for the CCBW program. I'm a business mentor for the King's Trust in the UK. So the King's Trust gives grants out to young individuals who are looking to make their startup business succeed. And I'm there to help with anything from marketing to sales to finance. Also a certified interview coach, LinkedIn coach, and resume/CV writer as well. So let's get into it. What are we going to cover today? So the key topics that we're going to cover, first of all, is the importance of tailoring your CV. So as many of you, I'm sure, know already, but we want to go through it again today just to make sure you understand that tailoring your CV is absolutely imperative. Quantifiable achievements, the importance of achievements on your CV. This is something that's particularly important in the GCC region. It's a very much money-driven market, and demonstrating your ability to increase revenue or reduce costs is going to be mandatory when it comes to your application. The power of keywords and why do we need to make sure we consider them when it comes to our CV. ATS systems. I'm sure many of you have heard of ATS systems, applicant tracking software or systems designed to parse and filter CVs on behalf of recruiters. So we're going to talk about that today. and how we should be mindful. And again, this is particularly important in the GCC region because everybody right now seems to be wanting to move to either Saudi or Dubai. And as a result, there's hundreds, if not thousands, of applications. And as a direct result, many recruiters will be using ATS systems. We're also going to talk in particular about GCC nuances. So when it comes to CV writing within the GCC, there are some particular things that we should be made aware of in order to leverage that information to make your application the best it can be. And then we'll go on to any Q&A as well. So if you've got any questions, do ask at the end of the presentation or webinar today. Just pop it in the chat and I'll be happy to answer where I can, or even pop it throughout the presentation. And again, I'll be more than happy to answer. So just before I actually go into the first topic here of tailoring your CV. So first and foremost, just to make it obvious if it wasn't already, typically within the GCC, it's CV that is used rather than resume. So resume, very much focused around the USA. There are some other geographies where resume is used, but CV is the most common. So if you're a CV/resume writer or you're an individual who wants to apply into the GCC, just something we want to be mindful of. It doesn't necessarily mean the actual structure of the document is going to be a lot different. But when it comes to naming that document and being familiar with the keywords in the region when it comes to your job application documents, the term CV is the most common used. It's not to say that resume is going to stop you getting the job, but CV is more common than resume when it comes to terminology. So let's first of all talk about the importance of tailoring your CV. So first of all, we need to tailor our CV because it's going to help us match the job requirements. When a recruiter or a prospective employer looks at your application, they're going to do two things. They're going to look at the job spec and they're going to look at your CV and they're going to want to see some synergy between the two. So we need to make sure that we match the job requirements every time because that recruiter will be looking for particular phrases, particular skills, particular expertise that are needed within the job to be mirrored within your CV. So when it comes to applying for a role within the GCC, we always want to make sure we tailor our CV. Second one, really important, is it demonstrates a genuine interest. And this is particularly prevalent in the GCC. Why? Because there's literally hundreds of applications for every job. So as you can imagine, as a recruiter, if it comes across that your CV is a generic application or an application where you don't have a genuine interest, it's going to be put in the bin or to the bottom of the pile. So by tailoring your CV, we're demonstrating that genuine interest. It highlights relevant skills and achievements. So by tailoring your CV, we're using all of that space available on the CV to make it very relevant to that job. So we're making sure that 2 pages used or 1 page used, all of it, we're leveraging that space to match the job description, therefore giving us the best chance possible to get that phone call for an interview. And ultimately, all those points is what's going to set you apart from the competition. And that's what Dubai and GCC in particular is about. Competition is fierce, it's high, and hundreds, thousands of people are moving to the GCC. I'm pretty sure I heard a statistic that it was something like 3,000 people a week are moving to Dubai, for instance. I probably should have come with some hard statistics today, but either way, hundreds, thousands of people are moving to Dubai every week, every month. And as a result of that, the competition is high. We need to stand out, and we need to stand out in a way that shows that we have a genuine interest in that role. So that's all about the importance of tailoring your CV. The next thing we're going to talk about, which I briefly touched on a second ago, is the importance of achievements. And so many people miss the importance of putting achievements on their CV. So why do I need to put achievements? I always get this question because it's very, very difficult to advocate for yourself. I get that. But achievements do showcase your impact and prove your value. And that's what employers want to see. They want to see your impact and see the value that you're going to bring on into your employment. And again, that's especially important within Dubai and the rest of the GCC, because companies in the GCC are growing. As a result of that growth, they need people who are high achievers, and they need them to come into that business and immediately make an impact. The way that we want to demonstrate those achievements on our CV is by making them quantifiable. And when I say the word quantifiable, what I mean is we want to add some numbers, because numbers add credibility and they prove value. And we'll actually talk about we'll show a little example in a second about a bad achievement and a good achievement. And you'll see that the main difference is whether numbers are present. As you can imagine, as a recruiter, if you was reading a sentence that said, I helped improve sales, that's a lot different to, I helped improve sales by 55% over a certain quarter. That shows impact, it shows value. Many people ask us, what if I've got no achievements? So many people will think, okay, maybe I'm at the start of my career, I haven't had a chance to prove myself, or it may be that you just haven't thought hard enough about any achievements that you've done. But if you do feel you truly don't have any achievements that are worth putting, then focus on responsibilities, skills, or contributions that have made a difference. We still want to make sure that we show achievements on our CV, regardless of your career stage or regardless of where you're at in your career. By the fact that we put achievements on our CV, it demonstrates to the employer that we understand the importance of an employee bringing additional value to their job. How many achievements should I put? So typically, there's no hard and fast rule, but typically 3 to 5 key achievements per role. If you can't think of that many, then certainly make sure that your most achievements are present within your current or most recent role. As to how we should write an achievement, I always recommend the STAR method, using part of it, if not all of this method, to write about an achievement. So STAR, if you haven't heard of it, is a fantastic method for breaking down an example or something that you've done into a chronological and methodical way. So S stands for situation. That's about explaining the context, the task, the action, and the result. And this is not only a good method for when it comes to writing, but also it's a great method for when you get the interview, because many of your interview questions will probably be about, tell me an example of when you did X, Y, Z. And the STAR method, like I said, is a very good methodical way of answering that question. So next slide here, just the importance of achievements continued. Like I said, just a bad example and a good example. So bad example here, helped improve customer service and made clients happy. So if this was my client or I was helping someone, first thing I would say is fantastic. You've got an achievement there. That's really good. However, it's vague, it's not measurable, and it doesn't highlight any specific skill. If we were to improve that, we would say something like increase customer retention by 25%. Over 6 months by implementing a new feedback system, therefore improving client satisfaction and loyalty. So same achievement, just differently worded, a lot more specific. It's measurable, it shows impact, and it highlights a valuable skill. So when it comes to, just a recap on achievements, so when it comes to writing about your achievement, always making sure that we try to solicit the impact that achievement had on the business in terms of numbers and results. And just a quick tip, if it's to do with revenue, but the revenue is a very small amount, let's say you increase revenue by, let's say $2,000 over the course of a quarter. However, if that same $2,000 equates to a very high percentage, then choose the percentage over the pounds and pennies. It might be that the percentage looks better than the dollars and pennies, if that makes sense. So next thing we're going to talk about is a pair of keywords. So what are keywords? So keywords are specific words or phrases related to job skills, qualifications, and industry terms that employers look for. So keywords, they really have quite a few ways that they impact a CV. One of which is, again, it demonstrates to the employer that we've tailored our application to the job spec. Because remember, what an employer will be doing, or a recruiter, is looking at that job spec and looking at your CV, and they want to see a synergy. And keywords and phrases is one way that we can portray that synergy. Because if we can match those keywords into our CV, it demonstrates that we therefore meet the requirements. And I guess that covers the first point here. It highlights key skills and expertise. So keywords emphasize your most relevant skills. Third point, really important, is it boosts searchability on job platforms. So there's many platforms now that recruiters will use where they don't only advertise a job, but they also manage or administer the applications as well. So when they administer those applications, it might be that one of the search fields is a keyword that they search for. So let's say, for instance, that you're applying for an accountant role. So one of the keywords might be, let's say, Sage accounting software. So that might be very important to the employer. So by having that keyword on our CV, rather than just putting accounting software, by being specific with the software that we're using, it means that we're going to boost our searchability. And last but by no means least, it enhances first impression. So by using industry-specific keywords, we're going to make sure that our CV looks professional and looks tailored. And again, just to recap here, because I'm conscious that today is all about the GCC. Again, the competition is rife. It's extremely high within the GCC. So, whilst these tips that I'm giving today can somewhat be applied to any market, they're extremely important within the market, the GCC, because those employers are looking for the top tier. They have the option of talent from all over the globe and talent also within the GCC itself. Next thing we're going to talk about is ATS systems, so applicant tracking systems. So one important point to note with applicant tracking systems, just to debunk a couple of myths. So first of all, there's many different ATS systems, and every ATS system works differently. So there's a lot of scaremongering out there saying ATS systems do this, X, Y, Z. And the answer is no, they don't. They're all very different. Some ATS systems are pretty standard, pretty basic, will allow a recruiter to be able to parse and filter CVs. And especially nowadays with the advent of AI, there's AI ATS systems now that are able to read into the narrative of your career. They're able to look at where you're going in your career, where you've come from in your career, and actually build that narrative in order to meet the narrative of the values and what the employer is looking for. So ATS systems, they're all very different. But when it comes to writing our CV, there are some certain things that we need to be mindful of. And again, within the GCC, because so many applications are made to every job, the chances are is that ATS systems are going to be used most of the time. So when it comes to writing our CV, the things that we need to be mindful of is, first of all, we need to make sure we use relevant keywords. And I explained that on the previous slide. We want to make sure, ideally, we're not really using any text boxes. So again, many people would argue, well, many ATS systems can read text boxes. Yes, they can, but some ATS systems won't be able to. So generally speaking, I recommend we don't use them. And where we can, either use a tab function or a table function rather than a text box, which is essentially a graphic layered on top. And on the note of graphics, don't use graphics. If you do, then try to make sure we demonstrate what we're trying to portray also within the content. So for instance, if you're doing a nice fancy snazzy bar chart on showing the skills that you have in a certain area, don't just show that skill through the bar chart. Make sure that we demonstrate that within our content as well, because again, ATS systems may not be able to interpret that graphic. And consistent and structured formatting, this is really important. So whatever we're doing throughout the CV, we want to make sure the sections, but also the way that our work experience is written down, is consistent. So if we're going to put the date on the left, the job role in the middle, and then the company on the right, we want to make sure we're doing the same thing for the following company, just to make sure Again, that when our CV is parsed, e.g. read by the system, that the interpretation is done correctly. So I hope those tips were good, but this final slide here, just before I talk about moving forward with delivering webinars like today, I just want to talk about some specific nuances that I think would be useful in addition to the tips that I've given today. So first of all, photos in the GCC. It is normal to put a photo on your CV. Is it absolutely required? No, it's not. Will it have an impact on your job search? Possibly, but I would argue not to a massive degree. But I can tell you now that photos, the majority of applications are used. So, as with anything in the job search process, we kind of sometimes want to follow the norm, because if we don't follow the norm, it might be that a certain recruiter thinks to themselves, okay, this person is making an application here against the norm, and therefore that they may use that as an insight into whoever you are. And obviously we don't want that. So if you are making a cold application, so if you're making an application to a job that you don't know anybody within that company, or you're not having a warm introduction, then I personally would recommend you include a photo, only because it's the norm. Now, if you are including a photo, always make sure that it's a professional photo. So typically from your shoulders up. If you're a lady, then making sure we're wearing a professional blouse and a jacket. And obviously, if you're a man, then making sure we're wearing a suit and a tie with your white background and smiling. It doesn't need to be a passport picture. It can be a professional smile. So photo, that's my take on photos. Some people will recommend different. Some people will say, don't include a photo. It opens up to you to bias and everything else. But the fact of the matter is, it is a norm and we can't get around that. Format, layout. So I'm conscious here, we've probably got people from all over the world. But I will tell you this, is that, again, there's no black or white answer. As with any region in that case, in my opinion, there's no black or white answer as to how long a CV should be or how a CV should be formatted. A CV should be formatted and laid out in a way that delivers the most value for the job that you're going for. And we talked about that earlier with tailoring your CV. But when it comes to format and layout, typically going for the CV style, which is your profile, skills and expertise, work experience, and your credentials, is very much the norm. I think, no, yeah. So in terms of the length of the CV, because the GCC is such a melting pot of nationalities, you've got people from America, people from the UK, people from Asia. The norms in those countries are all very different. So, the norm in the US, arguably it's not anymore, but many people go for a one-page resume. But, what might be one person's norm is not the norm when they move to the GCC. But typically speaking, 1 to 2 pages is the norm for the GCC. But like I said, there's no black or white answer. We just always need to make sure that if we break that norm, we break it for a reason. So in terms of the number of pages, if you're going to go for more than 2 pages, make sure you fully justify it. So justify it through delivering the most value you can in the content that you're talking about. Personal information. Again, this is one of those things where there's no black or white answer, but I will tell you that many people will put their residency status on their CV. The reason being, and the reason that many employers will like this, is purely the fact that it will demonstrate your ability to start a role immediately. Because in order to, let's say for the UAE, in order to be present in the UAE, 9 times out of 10, you have to have a job to be present. If you don't have a job, at some point in 30, 60 days, you're going to have to leave the country. And when you leave that country, when it comes to applying for a role, employers typically will prefer people that are already located within the country. It makes their life easier, and also it's less risk. So what many people will do is they'll put their residency status on their CV as a demonstration to show that I'm based here and therefore I can start the role immediately. Is that the right answer? Absolutely not. There's no right or wrong answer. If you feel that it's going to be extremely beneficial to your application to demonstrate that you are present and therefore resident in the country, then put it. The only caveat would be is making sure that the data or the information you put around that is limited, because at the end of the day, this is your personal data. So don't go and start putting your residency ID or Emirates ID number on there and everything else, because as we all know, scams are happening. So yeah, just something to be mindful of. But residency status on a CV is very, very much the norm. Obviously, that would only apply if you're already there. If you're not there, then don't put the status. There's no need to shout about the fact that you're based outside of the country. And that leads me on to the last point here, which is I think it's the last. Oh no, we talked about length, but contact details. So if you are based within the country, within the country that you're applying, then obviously contact details is a great way, again, that we can demonstrate that we are within the country because of the country code of your phone number. Now, if you're based outside of the country, but somehow have access to a local number, then I would recommend considering putting the local number on your CV. It may be that you used to live in Dubai and now you're out, or maybe that you have a tourist SIM. But again, it is a norm. It does happen. By showing your number on the CV, it's going to give an inclination to the employer as to where you're located. Now, the one other important thing that I must say on contact details, WhatsApp. Everybody uses WhatsApp, and especially Saudi and the UAE. WhatsApp is a mandatory. So whatever number you're putting on your CV, please make sure that you have WhatsApp on that number. If you don't, it may be that you miss out on opportunities. So really, really important. Make sure you put WhatsApp. If you can, try and make sure your WhatsApp number is the same as your phone number, just so that we don't have to put multiple numbers on our CV. So those are some additional nuances that I've already talked about, following on from what I said earlier. But like I said, many of those tips arguably could be applied to many different regions, but those tips I picked because I think they're extremely prevalent within the GCC, given the market that is operating there. So I really, really hope those tips gave some value, gave some advantage to whatever process you're in when it comes to applying for jobs. And length, I already talked about. My apologies. So just before I go on to the Q&A, just a final slide here before we go on to that. Our next webinar is Stand Out in the GCC, Building a Professional Brand That Works. That's on the 5th of March, so next week, at 4 p.m. Saudi Arabia time. So I'd highly recommend you come along to this because making applications within the GCC, a lot of it is based around your professional brand. So being able to apply to your network and being able to apply within the hidden job market is extremely important. So building our professional brand over multiple mediums is very, very important because, like I said, hundreds, if not thousands of applications per role. So we want to make sure that we find any avenues possible where we can also apply outside of the masses, because it's those applications that more often than not are more successful. So that's what that webinar is all about. And you can sign up on Eventbrite today, just where you signed up for today's webinar. So look, it's been a pleasure presenting today. I've really enjoyed it. I hope you have too. And as always, I'm always open to some questions. If you can't think of any right now and want to pop over any questions after, or you think about it after, then feel free to reach out to Park or myself directly, Andrew at purplecv.co.uk. If not, you can pop us an email or on our social channels for PRWCC. So before let me have a look and see if anything has come through. No, so I'm just going to wait a minute or two as they all seem to flood in on our last webinar. So we'll see if any come through and have a nice awkward silence in between.
Thank you, Andrew. I see Jacqueline at least is about an hour or so from me, so we are probably about
Oh,
at
okay.
that same 6:30 a.m. hour. Regina, too, probably. So, so if you've got any questions, and do remember that when you are working with that CV, that there are some significant differences in style between the U.S. resume and that CV. So that if you've got questions, this is, excuse me, the perfect time to ask. And Andrew, can you pop your LinkedIn in the chat or in the Q or yeah, into the chat, please? That way everybody can reach out very easily.
Yeah. Or do I go to Q? Oh, chat, right? Okay.
Chat. Also, if you haven't connected with me on LinkedIn, please make sure to check Park, and we will be constantly updating, especially with our new initiatives into the GCC and serving that job market. It's been an exciting exploration for us. So thanks, Andrew. So please make a note of that, and we'll wait together in awkward silence about another minute. Oh, you've got a
Oh,
question in the Q&A from Jacqueline. Cheers to
always for
plantation.
yeah, thank you, Jacqueline. Yes, it's 6:30 over here in Florida. I always thought the CV was much longer than a traditional resume, but you mentioned that it should be no longer than 2 pages. Is that correct? Yeah, so really good point there, Jacqueline. So CV, yeah, typically, or CV, as we probably all know, stands for curriculum vitae, course of life in Latin. So typically, yeah, originally a CV was always much longer. A CV back in the war used to basically be a standard for saying everything must be mentioned on your CV, regardless of whether it's relevant or not. Everything should be on there, but that's a very much outdated view. And as a result of that, in my opinion, the resume and the CV are probably as similar as they've ever been. It's all about demonstrating impact and value, whether that's over 1, 2, or 3 pages. There's no right or wrong answer. It could be that you need to do 3 pages for a resume or 3 pages for a CV. So a CV typically for the GCC is 2 pages, but again, there's no right or wrong answer. So I'm being very ambiguous, but ambiguous for a reason, which is that there's no black or white on that one. So my apologies. So in answer to your question, that you mentioned that it should be no longer than 2 pages. Is that correct? Generally speaking, that is correct, Jacqueline. But that caveat, what I've mentioned there. Danny L. Tayab, is the
Daniel, I
hiring
probably thought.
process?
Hey,
Yeah,
Daniel.
is the hiring? Hey, Daniel. Is the hiring process the same in the GCC as in the US? Like the generalized version of the hiring process is ATS filtering, manual application review, filtration, and final review and phone call screening. I would say so, yes, Danielle, absolutely. So, given the volume of applications, automation when it comes to applying for jobs is very much the case. So, when it comes to applying through mass, job boards or applications which solicit hundreds of applications. Then yeah, ATS filtering is very much used. And that's why the next webinar is kind of on the polar opposite of what we talked about today, which is not about making that CV, one version. Well, you should always make it a version for a job, but it's all about building our personal brand. We want to attract applications that come to us rather than the other way around. But in answer to your question, Danielle, yes, I would say that is very much the process in the GCC as well. And
And
Jacqueline,
Da
you're very welcome.
and Danielle is a CPRW. Are you as well, Jacqueline?
No, but working on it. Cool.
Good for you.
Good.
Andrew, also
Um,
a CPRW, so he also has that same certified resume writer piece and the CVP, so he is uniquely
yes.
qualified to speak to these. But
Good.
and it is a
Well,
little bit complicated too because we do refer to the CV in the US as for those
more
more
academic, isn't
complicated
it?
roles
Yeah,
like academic and like medical CVs. So it can be complicated. And Jacqueline, I just wanted to make sure that we weren't ignoring that piece that does have those multiple pages.
absolutely. But yeah, for those that have asked questions or attended today, please do search me on LinkedIn and it'd be lovely to connect with you, Andrew Arkley. And yeah, it'd be great to stay in contact. And Jacqueline, best of luck with your CPRW. And Danielle and it's just Danielle and Jacqueline that ask questions. Yeah, thank you very much for your questions. I really, really appreciated it. Good. Well, guys, please do make sure you sign up for the next webinar that we have next week on Eventbrite. And Margaret, unless there's anything else, we can leave our lovely audience in peace.
Thank you to everybody for being here, and we'll look forward to seeing you next time.
Take care. Thank you.